My grandfather was a really keen amateur photographer who had a dark room and taught me what was happening with photographic plates and how developing worked. And I was really fascinated by that. But when I went to senior school, I had a very old-fashioned chemistry teacher who let us make gunpowder and turn it into fireworks and do 101 things that you're not allowed to do anymore. And it was completely captivating, so I knew I had to study that further. So I decided to take chemistry at A level, and I didn't think I was going to go on to do it at university because I was really fascinated by physics. And I always enjoyed maths and physics a lot. Wanted to do some chemistry, but didn't think I was going to do it at university. And then we went to visit an oil refinery, and I wasn't looking forward to the trip at all because it sounded dirty and unpleasant and smelly. And when we got there, the size of it was just incredible, and we could walk around every part of the oil refinery, which was Fawley near Southampton, and we could look inside and see these processes we'd learnt about in class brought to life. And the sheer scale was absolutely astounding. So I decided that maybe some sort of chemical engineering would be for me, but discovered that I didn't like the maths involved in that so much. Fortunately, in my final year, we started studying the chemistry of the oceans, and that was absolutely fascinating. How you can extract gold from the oceans, how you can tell where a bit of ocean water comes from by the chemicals in it, how you can predict the future climate in another country by a bit of ocean water from thousands of miles away. And I returned to thinking I would take chemistry at university and absolutely loved it when I did. I love the maths side of chemistry. I love when it is basically applied maths, so particularly quantum mechanics. I was one of those people who became very excited when we found out that everything we'd learnt in school wasn't true and that there were these really complex, chaotic laws that governed how the universe worked. So I love the fact that a human being can set up an equation and describe it that governs the behaviour of a molecule, and yet we still can't solve it, and just that unknown was really fascinating. I'm also very interested by something that most chemists probably think is a little bit dull, which is something called zeolites, which are molecular sieves. So they're things with cavities that you can use to filter molecules, and they change shape when they get wet. So my dissertation at university was to model how these things changed shape and how much water would cause them to change shape. And it was quite esoteric, and I really enjoyed doing it. But then later, one of the zeolites that I'd worked on actually got taken up as a molecular sieve by a drug company and is still in use today. So I loved that in a tiny little way. I helped with that. Well, I didn't choose to go into teaching. It wasn't my initial plans. When I was at university, I was at Imperial College in London, which is all scientists. And there's an organisation called the Pimlico Connection, which takes scientists out of Imperial and into inner London schools. So I'd go out each week and help with maths or chemistry or physics in an inner London school. And I really, really enjoyed it. But I didn't see it as my future. In fact, I took a training contract with PricewaterhouseCoopers on leaving university and qualified as a chartered accountant and worked in London for quite a few years. I had a lovely office. I was in Embankment Place overlooking the Millennium Wheel as it was built, the London Eye as it is now, and had some fantastic clients. I worked for Elton John and some mining companies and some big publishers, and it was very exciting. But then eventually Gordon Brown, who was then the Chancellor, introduced something called a Research and Development Tax Credit, which sounds dry as dust now, but all the accountancy firms scrabbled to find their accountants to send them out to look at companies and to see whether things qualified. And so I was sent to my then client, Johnson & Johnson. And I had such a fantastic day going around their facilities and looking at all the chemistry going on that I realised how much I'd been missing the chemistry that I used to love. So I sort of sat with that for a while, and then I had an opportunity to live abroad for a couple of years, and I was in the Netherlands. And I was given the chance to teach at a couple of international schools in the Netherlands, helping out in Amsterdam and in Leiden, teaching some chemistry. Really enjoyed it, and decided that when I came back to the UK, I would retrain as a teacher. I love everything about being here. I've been here for 10 years and I absolutely adore it. I love the fact that so many of my pupils actively want to study chemistry. I love the fact that they challenge and ask questions and they don't take anything for granted, and it keeps me completely on my toes. I love supporting our students who want to go on to study medicine because they are taking chemistry, so I get to know them really well in the classroom and then can help them work towards their dreams in the future. And then outside of my classroom, I love the variety of things that I've been able to do. So I've led our Beaver Scout group. I've done science awards with people. I've been on some fantastic trips and really enjoyed those. And now I help run our competitive debating team, which was something completely new to me, but it was something that the pupils wanted and we set up. And I just feel like I get to continually learn and work with some really wonderful young people with very bright futures. Despite the fact that I teach chemistry, I'm not actually very good with my hands. I'm very good at the maths side of chemistry. So people are sometimes a little bit surprised to find that I'm quite a keen gardener. And we're kind of almost self-sufficient in some ways at home. So we have chickens and a very large vegetable patch, and we've just moved into keeping bees, which we've had for about a year, who turn out to be nightmarishly difficult. But we have managed to jar our own honey and even make some mead. So with cats and dogs and bees and chickens, it's a little bit of a menagerie, and people are often surprised to find that out.